Anthony, how are you?
Doing well, sir. How you doing?
Doing great.
Awesome. Going into this, Jed, this is my favorite session every week, and it's perfect that it happens on Friday. Allows us to unwind a little bit. Maybe we can even share this with the audience. I got my Madrid mug. You see Madrid there. So Tyler Daniels on our team, who handles social media, got me this mug when he visited Spain, I think in 2018, 2019. Got a cappuccino. I'm ready for the cyber insurance conversation.
Well, I'm glad we had talked about doing disaster recovery and business continuity, and I was going to pull out 5 questions on that topic from Measured Insurance questionnaire. And I'll give you this heads up in advance because it looks like the first question, they are combining business continuity with disaster recovery. And what I really think they mean is business continuity, which is the uninterrupted continuations of operations when something major happens. And then the disaster recovery part, just as an example, applies more to data.
So I'll quickly read for the audience because I think this often gets confused, right? And I think there's just small
Definitely.
tweaks in the language. So I loved what you shot over to me. It was titled The Differences Between Business Continuity and Disaster Recovery. And in our world, we all use this interchangeably. We'll even call it BCDR, we'll call it DR. We have all these short terms for it. But what you sent over, I'll read it for our audience right now. A business continuity strategy can ensure communication methods such as phones and network servers continue operating in the midst of a crisis. Meanwhile, a disaster recovery strategy helps to ensure an organization's ability to return to full functionality after a disaster occurs. To put it differently, business continuity focuses on keeping the lights on and the business open in some capacity, while disaster recovery focuses on getting operations back to normal. So there's a simple example that I'll use for the IT space that I've seen. I think of business continuity more around like a blimp on the radar. For instance, your local power to your office goes out for an hour. A little blimp on the radar. How are we going to continue normal business operations? On the other side with disaster recovery is you have a big cyber incident, a ransomware attack that encrypts the entire network. That's a disaster. You are completely shut down in that instance. How are we going to get you back up and running as quickly as possible? So I love that you shot that over to me because it was something even that I don't think through, to be honest with you. I just use it. And I
Right.
think it's really good for our audience to know. So thank you for shooting that over.
Absolutely. Well, I thought it would be really important to highlight how an MSP could not only help their clients fill out this application, and certainly you would hope anyone who reads the question, do you have a business continuity or disaster recovery plan? That would be yes. But maybe you could outline just in sketch form what a business continuity plan might look like.
Yeah. So from a very high level, right? Because everybody can probably Google these things and even get templates. I know we can share templates and things from a business continuity disaster recovery. But the way I actually initially was described this was from our founder and CEO, Rashad Bajwa. And he actually brought out a whiteboard. It was a whiteboard in his office. And he said, and we were going over basic concepts. And this is one. And it was around backup, but it involved this context. And we were talking about recovery time objective, recovery point objective, which plays into this conversation. Recovery time objective being how long are you going to be down and how quickly can we get you back up and running? And is that recovery time, is it 4 hours? Is it 6 hours? Is it 12? Is it 24? What is it? And is that comfortable for your business? The recovery point objective being how much data are we going to lose in the stretch of time? So if I have a backup running daily every single night, that means if it is, I'll give you a good example. If say the backup runs at 12 a.m. every single day. And at 11:59 p.m. the next day, I go completely down. That means I lost 23 hours and 59 minutes worth of data before that next backup ran. That RPO, that recovery point objective, therefore, is 23 hours and 59 minutes. In most of our examples, that's down. Most of our organizations are doing hourly snapshots, so it's 59 minutes. That being said, Rashad expanded out from that view. And he said, you actually have an RTO and RPO, which folds into the business continuity disaster recovery conversation around everything in your business. So he said, let's take the managed services business that we operate in and that we know. You have different departments, right? You have finance, and finance uses different systems, QuickBooks, Sage Intact. You have our engineering department that's servicing our clients. How do they service our clients? Our phone systems. How important is our phone system? They get support requests via email. How important is our email system? How important it is for them to log tickets. And the point of this is that you should look at, when you're looking at these two plans and designing them for your organization, you should really list out every single department and every single application they use, and then really think through how long could those teams be down. In our case, obviously, we service clients, they call us and email us. So our recovery time on our phone systems and our email systems is basically 0 minutes. We don't want those things to ever be down, right? So, okay, now that we've defined that, how do you go and protect against them? Once again, on the business continuity to keep the lights on, a simple outage versus a disaster recovery when you're really done. And then you design those plans around those two situations. I'll give one more example before we'll continue, but he mentioned our finance team, right? We're an MSP. And he said, our finance team, if you really think about the systems that they use, they actually, this was when we were a smaller business, they actually could be down a little bit longer and it wouldn't really hurt us too much. We're not invoicing people in real time. We're not a transactional e-commerce shop
Right.
that needs our products listed and the web applications to be running. Our finance team would be okay if they were down for a day and they lost that day of work. So overall, overarching, you're looking at what are the teams, what are the systems, and how do I service my clients to come up with the formulas on how you think through designing each one of these plans.
Well, I tell you, I was definitely a little challenged trying to think of personal examples where, as an MSP employee going on 20 years now, I ever recall being down and in the middle of a disaster. And I guess we're blessed because it really is the nature of our business. We can't be down. But I would say one of the biggest drivers of that continuous uptime and lack of drama has to be that 100% of our applications are cloud based.
Yeah,
From the
that's
VoIP phone system, where the phone system just
yeah.
gets shifted over to another data center, whether or not it's Ring Central at some point, or I'm
Yeah.
forgetting, we've changed it,
Yeah.
Tiva,
Yeah,
you
I have a
know?
couple different examples that actually happened at Legacy Domain in the Northeast. One of them was our office power. We lost office power, and at in normal, you think that's just going to be like, hey, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. All of a sudden, I remember we were all in the office, and our operations manager got a call from the town. You're going to be down for 6+ hours right now. That's our estimate. I don't know if somebody hit a transformer outside of the office park. I don't remember the exact situation, but because we're an MSP, because we've thought through these things, we had a full blown generator on a trailer, massive scale, that could get us back up and running. And that's following that business continuity plan of, if you're going to lose power over X amount of hours, this is the step we take next. And in that case, we had some of our engineers go out there, fill that bad boy up with gas, and get that thing rolling, because it was crucial enough for us to have that happen. The next big example is with clients, obviously, right? When Hurricane Sandy came through in 2012 up in the Northeast, that took a lot of clients, especially in downtown Manhattan. Their buildings flooded upwards of 10, 12, 20 floors.
Oh,
And
I
at the
didn't
time,
realize it was that high. That's
yeah,
been a while. Oh, that's
So
significant.
they had downtown Manhattan hadn't been flooded like that in probably however long, and they had some critical infrastructure in the basements of these facilities, and people couldn't locate their offices or get to their offices in work for upwards of months at for some people. So quickly moving servers and infrastructure and trying to get out of there is very important. And then the one thing that I always like to stress here when having this conversation, actually the problem of the example I just brought up. People think of the Hurricane Sandys, right? They think of those massive storms and, oh, that's not going to happen again, or it doesn't happen that often. The reality is that what I explained about the power outage happens way more often and catches so many people off guard. I've known of small, not small, decent sized thunderstorms that just based on the way they rolled through New Jersey took an entire county down and for a couple of days. And just in the middle of not up by the water, not by anything crazy, but a nice set of thunderstorms rolled through and it would take out a county and you'd hear about it on the news. And that's the situations that people don't ever think about or plan for. And that's where business continuity would really come in is those blimps on the radar. Because at the end of the day, most organizations' biggest cost is their salaries and wages for their employees. That's their biggest cost for almost every organization. And if you think about this in terms of ROI, return on investment, or really in the insurance world, that business interruption, what does that cost you? That leading driver is what is the salary every single hour that you have to continue to lay out that your people are no longer productive? I'll pause there.
No, that's a good lead in because I'm going to dig deeper into this for some statistics. But the next question related to business continuity is when was it last tested? Less than a year ago, more than a year ago, more than 24 months ago? Never. Do you know what the stats are on that, on how many businesses actually might stage, whether or not their plan has sea legs to withstand major flood, storm like Sandy, et cetera?
Yeah, I don't have the statistics on it. I'm sure if we did a quick Google search in the background, we may get an answer to it. But this is you and I had talked about this in the past about even just backups and testing them and making sure you can restore from them, which I even think is a question on this that we'll get to as
Yeah,
well to
that's
rehash
next up. Yeah.
is at the end of the day, from what we see, at least on the backup systems, is the answer is it's not often or rarely, and nor do they ever run through the exercise of actually practicing it in the
God, who has
cybersecurity.
time for that? Seriously. Your average $5 million, $10 million a year business, I can't see any attorneys or CPA or money managers going, all right, guys, let's spend 4 hours doing this.
No,
I'm not,
it
yeah.
comes back to the person who owns cybersecurity, the person who owns this, and sometimes it's operations. Most of the time, that all reports up into somebody in the financial position. And like you said, their time, the other day we were seeing that most IT organizations report into finance, most HR organizations report into finance, sales, marketing. In smaller businesses, they don't have the ability to silo all of these and normally it flows up there. And the answer is they don't have time. And this is where I kind of go against the grain on a lot of the larger consulting companies, where they're so focused on policies and procedures. And the answer is exactly what we know it is. Even if I get the policy up and running, I never look at it, or I don't even know where it is, or I never even test it or update that policy or procedure to today's standards. So even if an emergency or a blip on the radar happen, there's no chance that I'm gonna go look at that and it's gonna be completely outdated. And I may have Jed as the next person to contact in a situation, and Jed doesn't even work for my company anymore. So yeah, the answer, I don't have the stats, but my gut, yeah, I rely a lot on my gut. My gut says that many are not updating those policies and many are not testing those policies in real life.
Well, I'd certainly be inclined to believe that cloud would be a nice safeguard against really having things by the farm when there's a major event. And that's why, as I mentioned 10 minutes ago, the whole idea of being down. Wow, that's never happened to me. And that's because I work for technology companies that are largely cloud. Now, you did a nice little lead in, and this is about maintaining regular backups. And they ask, do you maintain regular backups at least monthly? Which I think that is way too wide a time frame. And are they encrypted?
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that. The fact that and this is a wonderful reason why you're on our marketing team and your industry experience, that many folks wouldn't even pick up on that, and you picked up on it as you
Oh,
read
there's
the
two things going on there.
Yeah. So yes, don't back up monthly. That is way too long of a period. Because most likely, if you're backing up monthly and something goes wrong, you're probably going to lose about 6 months worth of data by the time you actually figure it out. So yeah, the recommendation should be hourly. There should be hourly snapshots at minimum with daily offsites is the rule of thumb to start at. So a lot of times you'll see, and I think even in the question, they talk about weekly, monthly, and stuff like that. But you should be doing at minimum hourly snapshots and daily offsite backup.
And they
And they
also
should be
mentioned,
encrypted.
yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the viewers of this podcast know what encryption is. So just in case there are a few newbies, could you lay out just a quick description of encryption for?
Yeah, very briefly for the Jeds and Anthonys of the world, if we went and found a USB storage device or another storage device of any size and we plugged it in, we would see a random mix of multiple characters that we would not be able to read on the screen, nor would anybody else. And you would need an encryption key, basically it's a passcode of some sort, right? An encryption key to make that hashed text, that crazy text look like normal words of what it actually is.
Now, that's a great definition. Thank you very much. The next question they ask, are your backups segmented from and inaccessible through the organization's network? Yes or no? The
Yeah. So
significance of that, I'm sure you could explain.
yeah, legacy backup systems were done in the server closet, right? You had a server, you're running a physical appliance in that server client, so in that network, right? Directly in that room. And that's where your backups were being done. You could open the closet door, you could see that the backup was green, you could log into the system, and everything's all good. There's a couple problems to that. One, that cyber threat actors make more public than others, but number one is back to disaster recovery. What if I can't get to my office? Couple of examples of that. I have a fire in my office, or even just my office building. Maybe my neighbor has a fire, but because of that, the police and fire department are giving no access to my facility. I can't get in. I can't go restore from backup, which is the whole point of having a backup, is being able to duplicate that in another environment somewhere else to be able to get access to it. A storm system, a Hurricane Sandy. And then finally, what threat actors were doing was even via cloud systems, they would get into your systems, they would take full control over your backup system, but then they would even go a level deeper and they would go to multiple backups. So say I'm backing up in that one example monthly. Well, the threat actor is going to get in and then they're going to keep going backwards and get full access. So the ability, and I'm going to just reword it the way they do, that the backup system is segmented and inaccessible through the organization's network is extremely important. So there's a couple different ways you'll see that done. The most familiar is you'll do an offsite backup to a cloud system somewhere else. So it's completely located somewhere else. And then from that system, you can also have a physical backup from there that's completely segmented from the network, even offline. A lot of recommendations are to go the third step further, where you have a backup that is physically offline. So nobody can access it from any type of internet.
Hey, you're reminding me of one of my favorite solutions. I know that y'all have used it for years, Datto. So the
Yeah.
whole idea where you'd have network attached storage that you can completely remove, have it on site, you can remove it, but then that's backed up frequently throughout the day, 50-minute increments if you want. There's nightly test restores. It's backed up in one cloud data center, another one if you so desire for an extra cost. And if you had a major meltdown, you could run under their contract term your business in the cloud for no extra charge. I think it was 90 days the last time I checked. So that's a pretty incredible backup and
Yeah.
disaster recovery.
Absolutely. All the providers we work with, you have Datto, you have StorageCraft, you have Veeam. There's a bunch of different solutions out there. You can get pretty complex on the backup solution. The main systems, then you can get to a system called there's something called a warm site, and then there's something called a hot site. And I'll go all the way to hot sites just to prove the difference. A hot site would show you your RPO, your recovery point objective, and your recovery time objective on a hot site would be 0 minutes on each, basically instantaneously. And what that really means, and where is that practical? It's cost a lot of money to do, but it's practical in like the financial services markets where they're trading stocks in real time. There's a lot of practical applications of having what they call a hot site. And a hot site is your environment is running in parallel. The same data is running here, that's running here, and it's live going back and forth. So there's at any moment in time, we can shut this down and this can get up and running. Shut this down, this can get up and running. They're both live at any one time. Extremely expensive to do. We actually have clients that have that type of setup based on the natures of their business. And then there's a middle ground of a warm site that's a split between each. It's not 100% live, but it's fairly close.
Well, the final question that I would suspect a lot of businesses can't answer without an assist from their MSP or their IT department is the frequency at which data is backed up and test restored. I mentioned 3 minutes ago data, how it can be tested nightly, but they ask here, is it done at least daily, weekly? Monthly, it even has none. Hopefully, no one says none here. They're not gonna
Yes.
get the policy if they say none.
Yeah, so the frequency of backing up data and do you test restoring from backup? So interesting, they don't even have a yes no option. So I don't know if that means if you answer this question, you are or you aren't doing it. But yeah, as we mentioned before, daily, weekly, and monthly are on the check boxes here. If you're at a monthly and a weekly, you're far behind in today's capabilities. That made sense years ago as the cost of backing up and doing that process, the software, the hardware to make you able to accomplish that was more expensive. With today's pricing and cost to do this, it should be at minimum daily backup. As Jed and I have mentioned multiple times, our standard solution that I know we go to market with is an hourly snapshot. Every single hour, we're taking a snapshot and then we're doing daily off sites. Jed had mentioned 15-minute increments, and you could go as low as 0. You could go all the way to that hot site, but yeah, my gut would say that you should be considering at minimum daily backups. And then in terms of test restores from backup, we find a lot of people are not actually doing this. And when do you find out? When you had one of those business continuity issues or those disasters and you're going to restore for the first time and you've never done. Another reason why you want to back up more frequently than less frequently, right? If I'm trying to restore from a month's worth of data or a snapshot from a month ago, that takes a lot more horsepower to get up and running than a snapshot that was just taken as recently as 59 minutes ago. And yes, you should one, make sure backups are running. Number two, go into the backup file and make sure it's actually the data that you wanted backed up and not a blank file, because that happens. And then number three, yes, you should be, and we try to quarterly test restore from those backups. That's a very good like rule of thumb there, standard.
Well, I've been through our ticketing system to look at different ticket matters from our various clients, and I've seen a lot of entries for these automated backup and testing. That was very reassuring, but I'm not as sure what companies are doing that don't have an MSP helping them, mainly smaller entities who might just have something makeshift in-house with an IT person that might fulfill other functions.
Absolutely. And even small businesses that have an MSP. We find a lot of organizations, and the Southeast does this very well, that have current providers in place. And there's nothing wrong with them. They just may be smaller. Maybe they're 1 to 10 people, MSP provider or partner, and they're just wearing so many hats. And one of the hats is what we're talking about. And it goes to the bottom of their list. And one of the difference in working with a provider that has the size and scale that we do is we have teams of people that are built out on their specialties. And one of the specialties obviously is backup and disaster recovery, how important that is. And they're doing everything that we just discussed over the last 30 minutes to make sure our customers are protected. The last thing that we want, and I tell customers all the time, you should be holding us accountable for backup and disaster recovery. And we need to be executing on that. And if you go down, we should be there to make a difference and hopefully surprise you in how fast we're able to serve your needs and your company to get you back up and running, your team productive again, and make sure you're servicing your clients. Extremely important conversation. As Jed brought this conversation up to me, he had multiple insurance applications cross his desk, multiple clients that are starting to ask about their cyber insurance renewals, which is gearing us up. But depending on when this gets released, in mid-February to late February, we'll do a cyber insurance webinar with our friends over at Measured Insurance. And the whole point of that is the cyber insurance market is changing. Multiple customers are coming back to us now saying, my cyber insurance carrier won't let me renew my policy unless I get XYZ in place. We've never seen that before. And my gut tells me that's because the cyber insurance carriers are getting rocked in the terms of the amount of claims that they're paying out or examples of claims that they're seeing. And they're getting pretty serious about these applications and the questions that they're asking. And probably, as the Measured Insurance folks told us, even denying coverage or denying renewals because you don't have minimum standards in place. And once again, I keep telling people it's 2022 right now. We've been dealing with this. Jed's been seeing this his whole career. It's been 10 years of significant breaches, ransomware. Everything gets more sophisticated. It's 2022. It's not 2000 where this stuff wasn't top of mind or SMBs weren't dealing with this. It's 2022. Insurance marketplace is getting smarter. Managed service providers are getting smarter. And at the end of the day, clients are getting smarter too. We're here for you. Jed, thanks for doing this with me, man. Any last words?
Absolutely. Have a great weekend.